Post-match chat is live. It's the end of the fourth T20 between India and England. India have won. They've squared up the series 2-2. Quite a special performance from them overall, I have to say. A few moments here and there where they could have done better. But overall, India were pretty much in control of the game, and they sealed it off in style in the end. And we're going to have a decider. Also, massively, they won. They lost the toss. They batted first. They managed to defend a total for the first time in ages. I can't remember the last time a team managed to successfully defend a total in T20 cricket in the subcontinent. So that's quite nice. Actually, I do. It was the Quetta Gladiators in the PSL. But in any case, I'm very pleased to talk about today's game with some regular faces, some new faces. We've got Anam Nadeem, as always. We've also got Arif, who's with us as well. And a special guest today, a colleague on BBC TMS, a superstar in the world of sports journalism, and just a great guy, Mr. Henry Moeran. Henry, welcome to the show. Lovely to have you. Thanks for taking the time. It's a great performance from India to level up today's game, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was in embryonic form when that T20 started. It went on so long. I've never seen anything like it. It lasted about 4.5 hours. But having said that, it was the most exciting game that we've had in the series, wasn't it? It was the one game that we've had so far which hasn't followed that pattern. Win the toss, bowl, chase down the target with minimal fuss. And so for that, I'd rather a game that lasted a bit longer and had that interest and enthusiasm. And I've got to say, India played really well. And you look at all these players that come through, be it Shreyas Iyer, Suryakumar Yadav, and they've been grounded in the IPL. They've got that big match experience. They come straight into the international scene and dominate from the off. And from the perspective of a cricket lover, it's brilliant to see, isn't it?
It really is, Henry. It totally is. I mean, I don't know if I'm all the way with you, because I've sat through some really long cricket games in my time, particularly T20s, and they're always in India. There's something about India that makes these games go on for ages, whether they're IPL games or T20 games. I mean, some people weren't that bothered. Other people I've been following on Twitter, they've suggested loads of things. Apparently, in ODI cricket, you can get docked points. In Test cricket, you can get docked points in the World Test and ODI Championships, respectively. But there's nothing in T20 cricket. And captains don't really get fined anymore either, like they used to. So what do you think? Is this just the way cricket is now? Like, they're 4 hour long, deal with it? Or do you think something needs to be done to rein this back? What did you think, Anam?
I think it's just the way it is now, but it gets annoying. To a certain extent, it does get annoying, sitting in front of the TV, a game which should have ended like 40 minutes ago, and you're still sitting waiting for a result. Though the game was really exciting and it went till almost the last ball, but still it was frustrating, honestly. And I think something needs to be done. A lot of suggestions, as you said, were coming in on Twitter as well, especially Mazhar Arshad was very vocal, the statistician Mazhar Arshad. And he was even suggesting that maybe you can start penalizing the team. For example, either take away an over or dock them with just subtract some runs from the total. So yeah, I think something on those lines needs to be done. By just making the captain sit out of the game is not going to help. But some substantial measures need to be taken.
Yeah, for sure. We like the captains. I don't know. Like, can we take an over off T20 cricket over with 19 overs? Before you know it, everything is the 100. It's fine. We'll talk about that as well. Don't worry. Arif, listen. Let's talk a little bit about some of the cool stuff we saw today. India batted first. They lost the toss. Owen Morgan puts them in predictably, as we expected him to. They wanted to secure the series, and then now we're faced with another Indian talent. And he comes and he gets a 50 of 28 deliveries right off the back of Ishan Kishan getting a 50 of like 30 odd deliveries in his first game. Now here's the interesting thing, Arif. They're the first two Indian batsmen to get debuts for the Indian T20 team in the last 3 years. And so they come in their first game and they immediately perform. What does that tell you about how much depth India have, how many options they have for that batting lineup?
I think with India, they've somehow managed to get this system in place where it's all just working. I think there's not many teams in the world who've managed to do that. I think England might be one, Australia, and India. For example, I'm a Pakistani fan, right? And the last time I had any debutant actually do well or they normally take 20 games just to score their first run to get off the mark. So yeah, the Indian team have got the process right. Whatever they're doing is working. The other surprising thing is the fact that you mentioned that they're not really known for that consistency, are they, with team selection? For 3 years to not give anyone a debut, you know what? That's some doing. It means that they know who their best players are. They know who's gonna win them games. And coming to the World Cup, what a position to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just to have that much strength. But as you say, the players that are there, it's not like people don't give them a lot of stick. So right now, Henry, there's talk of KL Rahul being in this pool run. They're like, drop KL Rahul. He's the world number 4 batsman. Today, there's been a lot of chat about dropping David Malan, who's the world number 1 batsman. Do these world rankings mean anything anymore, Henry? Or are they just there to give us another sponsorship opportunity in world cricket?
The rankings are such a funny thing, and because particularly in the last 12 months, teams have played such an erratic amount of cricket. Some teams have had huge blocks of playing, others none at all, and you find players shooting up the rankings, other players disappearing entirely. And T20 is such a fickle game. You think of the way Virat Kohli's series has gone. Difficult scores, then he gets a 77, then another difficult score today. And where does that leave him in terms of the ranking? Where does that sort of show what's his value? And David Malan has been a player that has gone on an extraordinary run where he scored lots and lots of runs, but he's not necessarily, in the series that we've seen, contributed a huge amount because he's taken up quite a lot of deliveries in that time. And then you sort of break down into the moneyball side of T20 cricket, if you like, and how valuable is a run in comparison to how long it takes you to get that run. And there's an argument to say you're better off hitting 6 off 1 delivery than you are 14 off 17, which is what KL Rahul and David Malan managed today, when you've got others that might be able to come in lower down the order and use those deliveries with a little bit more effect. So rankings are a funny thing, and it's almost that cricket needs another metric to establish how effective a batsman is in T20 cricket, because it's such a complicated thing in terms of somebody's contribution with the bat.
Absolutely. I mean, you put it there perfectly. It's really difficult to judge. Some of it, I think, is kind of fans, the cult of the new, and also fans just overreacting immediately, like, 2 games and 2 zeros, he's rubbish, he can't play. You get a lot of that. But equally, like, conditions are very challenging and so diverse around the world. I say around the world, but even in this series in India, we've had 4 different pitches in 4 different games, and I'm having to learn about things like red soil and knew this and knew that, like things I never cared about or knew beforehand. But listen, before we move on, I'm going to get you guys' moments of the day. I just want to pose a trivia question to you based on something that happened in today's game, right? So Virat Kohli has played 82 T20 international matches, and today was the first time that he's been stumped in T20 cricket. Okay, beautiful googly. It was Adil Rashid, great little chuckle as well from Butler behind the stumps, and that was it. That was the first time he's been stumped. Now, which player has the record for run without being stumped in T20 international cricket? Who's got the right answer for me?
Whoa.
Ooh.
Any guess?
Without being
Arif,
stumped.
go on, first guess. Just take a wild guess.
What was it again? Without being stumped?
Yeah, the longest run of T20 matches without being stumped.
We need to know the country at least.
I'll make it easy for you. He was playing today.
Okay.
Oh, Josh Butler.
No, it's not Josh Butler.
Owen Morgan.
Owen Morgan, yes, absolutely. Come on, guys. There was only 24 people playing today. One of them just got his 100th T20 cap. Has now gone the longest in T20 international cricket without being stumped. There's a little random stat I stumbled upon today. That was interesting, actually. You don't often see Kohli miss the ball by that much, and it was a beautiful delivery. And we'll talk about it a bit more. But first, let me get your moments of the day. Anam, let's start with you. What was your moment of the day?
Mine is a little unorthodox. There were so many good bowling spells, batting, display, everything. So mine was when Sam Curran was trying to save a boundary, and he rolled over and tried to, pull off the ball, and the ball just went away, touched the rope, and he picked up the ball. He threw it back to the keeper, and somehow when the umpire said it's 4, he thought it's not 4, and he was like, "How is that 4?" So probably, no crowd, no pressure, no nothing, but still somehow Sam Curran was zoned out and he couldn't believe that the ball had already passed him and it was 4. So that was my little moment of the day.
Yeah, a little bit of detachment from it, but it's a little bit away with it sometimes. It's been a long series, I guess. Arif, what was your moment of the day, mate?
I think my moment, probably a bit personal here, is I got a little too excited when Archer smashed that six at the end, and I thought, you know what, we're going to do this. We're actually going to do this. And then to get me more excited was we had Rohit Sharma and was it Karthik or someone talking to the bowler at the end.
Yadav.
Hardik. It was
Hardik,
Hardik Pandya.
yeah. So that got me even more excited. It looked like Archer was just like sort of leaning on his bat with his legs crossed, thinking, right, I'm going to win this game. And you know what, yeah, disappointed we lost. But for me, that six just got everyone excited. If there was a crowd there, 130,000 people, it would have been dead silent, because that's what the Indian crowd does. But it's not going that way.
Yeah, no, the fake sound effect guys seems to have picked up on that as well, because they don't play the music when you hit the bat anymore, or the sound music. I think it's probably quite. We talked about this just before as well. It's probably really annoying to have like multiple people talking to you when you're trying to bowl the last over, and there's dew, and you've got to put it in the right area, and there's pressure, and you've also got Hardik Pandya and Rohit Sharma, and one of those guys has more credibility than the other one. I think I'll leave it to you to work out who that is, telling you exactly what you need to be doing. Anyway, yeah, it was all rather bizarre for sure, and there were hopes for England right there at the end. Henry, what was your moment of the day?
Suryakumar Yadav smacking Jofra Archer for six, his first ball faced in international cricket. And I think it is so good about, and I know that loads of people turn around and say the IPL, the PSL, the 100, the Big Bash League, they're not necessarily they can be to the detriment of the international game. And there's been a lot of debate about the effect of players being the IPL on the England Test side and one thing and another. But there's no question about it. The international game is greatly enriched by somebody that's got the experience of playing in the IPL and the major leagues, being able to step out there, face one of the fastest bowlers in the world and smack him for six. You've got none of this sort of initial phase of players trying to get used to international cricket. It is bang from the off, and it's really exciting. And I think that the game is richer for it. And for me, seeing a young player, or not so young player, but a young player in terms of his international career, coming out there and smacking the ball over the ropes for six from Jofra Archer, all he could do was smile. And you just think, the game is in a healthy place if that depth of quality is available in international sides. And I think the leagues that are perhaps, a couple of years behind the IPL in terms of that depth of talent, international cricket will get stronger for every country around the world that has this sort of consistent exposure to the world's best. And, it'll make the major tournaments so much more exciting when that quality shoots up a bit.
Absolutely. Bang on. It was really exciting to see, Suryakumar Yadav, and those of us who've been watching the IPL for the last few years, we know how good he's been at number 3 for his franchise, just constantly, consistently, that kind of blistering start, especially when one of the openers went. He was so good and a great option for him. I mean, the trouble for them really is they've almost got this embarrassment of, riches sort of, or embarrassment of potential riches with these two new young batsmen holding up their hands. What are you going to do? What are you going to drop KL Rahul? I guess they might have to. My moment of the day, guys, and this was one of the more controversial elements of today's game, is the catch that set off 1,000.
That was going to be yours.
Yeah. The 1,000 soft signals that came after that. I know a lot of people talked about it, and there's a lot of discussion about whether soft signals should be a thing, particularly for catches that are deep on the boundary. But I genuinely really believe, controversial, but I think he definitely took the catch. Like, I believe that his ring finger, his middle finger, or his ring finger, one or the other, was underneath the ball, and it was right there. And it couldn't be conclusively proven otherwise, right? He's claimed the catch. You can't prove that it's not wrong. I mean, people can talk about it after the fact, but at the end of the day, cricket is still sort of the ethos of it. It's the gentleman's game, right? We talk about all these fair play awards in these T20 franchises. Let's treat it like that kind of game and just let it go when someone takes a catch. And the soft signals, they just wound me up so much because there were so many of them. It was soft signal mania today during the match. But yeah, my moment was that catch and the ensuing stuff, the discussion that happened on Twitter afterwards. It was all rather bizarre, and it was unfair because it kind of took away from the game itself. And one of the things that really worked today in today's game was very interesting to watch. A game kind of twisted on this moment, Anam. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. Was that over from Shardul Thakur, his penultimate over, where he managed to get Owen Morgan and maybe more crucially Ben Stokes, who was looking good, still hasn't got his first T20 50. He got them in consecutive balls, and for me, that's where the game went for England. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're bang on with that. He just gave away 7 runs, took 2 wickets as well, and back to back set Ben Stokes. And I was hoping for Morgan to come in handy as well, because how Morgan can play, But as we were discussing off air as well, that probably he hasn't had enough match time, and he's still struggling to hit the ball out of the ground. And he was trying his best, and at that particular time, it was either hit big or go home. So he had no choice. Like it's not like he had to anchor the innings. It's just that he had to hit big. He tried, he failed, and you can't say much about that. It could have gone either way. And for me, I think Hardik Pandya's 4 overs, they were crucial in today's match, because in India were only playing with 5 ballers, and everybody was like, at least England supporters were hoping that Hardik would go for a lot of runs, and probably England can capitalize on that. But the way he bowled, that was really surprising. And the way he used his change of pace and the slow bouncers, I think he was brilliant with his spell.
Yeah, I agree with. I mean, they kept going on about, oh my God, this weak fourth bowler. Where are they going to find this over from? He bowled his first 3 overs for 11 runs. Like, he's the most economical bowler, and we're talking about him like he's some kind of liability. Arif, did I miss something there, or do you think there's possibly a little bit of underestimating of Mr. Pandya happening?
I think he's just come back from an injury as well, hasn't he? So I know in the last game the commentators were like, once he's fully fit, he is actually going to make a difference. But these professionals now, it's not what it was 5-10 years ago. These guys are coming back from injury quicker. They're in the gym. They're strong. And today, Pandya, in my eyes, he was the difference between the two teams. Except for the bit that he did at the end, which I will rant about. But what was he doing giving advice to someone like that? Because Pandya is just known to be a loose sort of cannon, isn't he? And it's the last person you want to be listening to at that point in the game. I've just been hit for a 6 by Archer. What do I bowl? And then Rohit Sharma was like, bowl him a nice juicy full toss strike. Yeah, no problem. As much as I would have loved that, but yeah, it did get a bit. They were under the pressure. I was a bit disappointed that goalie was stood out, sat down outside. I think I mentioned this off air. As captain, if this went wrong, he was in trouble, because you're leaving Rohit Sharma and Pandya to do your bit, and you were good enough to walk. I hope he's not seriously injured, by the way, because then I would look stupid. But I think that was a big call from him, because at the end Archer could have really swung it England's way. But you're right. India are not really known for their bowling over the years, but how have things changed over the last 2 or 3? They've probably got the best bowling side in the world. Probably in T20s, probably England are close with the pace and stuff, and with Adil Rashid. But other than that, I can't really name a team who is as good as India on the bowling side. And it hurts for me to say that, because I'm a Pakistani fan. So, you know what? Well done to India.
Yeah, no, they've turned it into a thrilling series, because we're going to have a decider, which I think everybody neutral certainly wants to see a deciding match for the 5th T20. I think I'm going to disagree with you. I will respectfully suggest that England has a better bowling attack. But let's talk to Henry Moeran about that. Like, Henry, what do you think? What did they kind of take from that game? Because there weren't any obvious flaws. Like, there wasn't something that England did so wrong that you can just go back and say, okay, here we go, guys, let's adjust this. I mean, Jason Roy struggled to get going, but I think India bowled really smartly at him. Some of the England batsmen got out to false shots, but you could say that the situation demanded those kind of shots. And even equally with the ball, they didn't seem to get anything overly wrong for me, or am I missing something? What does England take from this match, Henry?
I don't think you're missing anything. I think in isolation, it's very easy to look at one T20 and try and draw conclusions from from a false shot here or a pour over there that goes for 25 runs, and you think, well, that bowler's not up to it, that batsman's not up to it. But we know that T20 is a more complicated, nuanced game than that. I think that perhaps one problem that England do have, and Anam mentioned it with that over that saw the dismissals of Stokes and Morgan in consecutive deliveries. And I think when you have that axis of Stokes, Morgan, Curran, three left-handers in that position, I think that just perhaps leaves England a little bit vulnerable, because it becomes a little bit samey. And bowlers, we know in T20, it's all about the variations. It's all about having to mix things up and make things difficult. And perhaps if there was a Sam Billings in there, and how do you squeeze him in? I'm not saying this is easy for England selectors at all, but somebody that just changed that up a little bit. And we saw immediately as Chris Jordan came in, short and wide, and he hammered it for 4. And maybe that, if there had just been a right-hander, it could have just tilted the momentum when it shifted quite dramatically in India's favour. The only other thing I would say is I do feel for Moeen Ali in all of this, because he left the England Test tour and there was all the confusion and did he ask to leave? Was he asked to leave? Was it all part of a plan? All of this stuff that was a little bit uncertain whenever it was, and has come back to be part of the white ball squad. And he sat on the bench for 4 games. And this is a used pitch today. You thought, it's got to be Moeen Ali today. And again, he doesn't play. And you just think, you feel for him, because he's had a tough old winter one way and another. And perhaps England, would have given them another spin option. And, who knows what might have been. But, those would be the only things.
Can I add something there?
Well, please, go for it.
I think Henry's made a good point there. I remember when there was a lot of talk with Jonathan Trott, and his mental health, and with him retiring from the Test side. I remember watching an interview with all that happened with Moeen in the Test series, and the one thing that stood out for me was, he says, I just wanted to come home to see my family. Right? He says these bubbles were really taking toll on everyone, and I just wanted to come home. It'd been a long time, and he goes, it was prearranged, obviously, but you pulled him back out into a bubble away from his family, and he sat there twiddling his thumbs. Right, this guy's mental health isn't going to be in the best of positions, especially with what he's been through for the last few years. I think if he's not going to be a part of the World Cup, I think it's time for Moeen to sort of. I think that's it, in my opinion. I don't think the management should really mess him about any more than what they already have. I think he might have to make this call, and I know he's waiting for this World Cup. But yeah, he might just be at the World Cup, just sat on the bench again.
It's possible. I would suggest that Moeen Ali's contributions to that team go beyond just playing. Right, he's like the senior member, a really well liked member of the squad, and this kind of inspiring role model type figure for some of the younger players as well. And obviously he's going to be in India for the IPL anyway. So I get it. This extends the bubble. If he wasn't going to play, why bring him? I imagine England are trying to execute certain game plans. It's difficult because they want to get as much data as they possibly can ahead of the World Cup later this year, but also they want to win the series. Like, they don't want to. Owen Morgan, as Nakul Pandey, our guest on the previous show, said, Owen Morgan is ruthless. He wants to win these games. Winning the game is paramount to him. So they've got a weird balancing act to do, and it's very tricky because, as you say, and we've talked about this before, Anam, people like Alex Hills are being talked about again. I mean, I know Owen Morgan kind of shut that down temporarily, but if he keeps scoring runs in the resumption of the PSL, he's going to make his case stronger. He's got the 100 to come. He's got so many opportunities to show himself ahead of the 120. And that's not even counting James Vince, who had a phenomenal Big Bash, right? They've got a lot of talent to balance. There's no room to mess about in the middle.
Yeah, and I think that's why David Malan's position is a lot more vulnerable right now, because he's not being able to convert his mini starts into something. And if anybody's interested, I'd like to plug Jared Kimber's video over here. He just made it yesterday or day before yesterday. He was talking about how David Malan is the number 1 batsman in the world and what goes into the rankings. As Henry mentioned as well, that there's a lot to talk about how the rankings are made. So if anybody's interested, you need to watch Jared's video and you'd get a more info on what's going on behind the rankings and whether a player should be number 1. And should there be this baggage, obviously David Malan has this baggage of being the number 1 batsman in the world as well. Like when you talk, you say David Malan, the number 1 batsman in the world, was unable to convert his 14 17 ball 14 into anything substantial. So yeah, that it takes a lot of toll on the player as well.
It's given a persona in world cricket. Like all of a sudden, people know David Malan. He's distinguishable from all these other English batsmen. It's not like I don't know. People talk about the weight of it. It's not like he's carrying like a heavyweight championship around his belt. Like I think it's totally fine. Like it's something
No,
players really should.
there's this crown on his head that he's the number one batsman in the world, and he needs to perform like a number one batsman. You expect a number one batsman to score every match, day in day out. Like as a fan, that's what you expect, right? Odd days are expected, but still, when it's needed, you expect the number one batsman in the world to score runs. So yeah, I think that's that, and yeah, I think. I'll add on to Moeen Ali and Sam Billings' case as well. I think England should experiment and bring in Sam Billings in place of David Malan and Moeen Ali in place of Sam Curran in the next game. I really want to see that combination as well.
Yeah, I'd go Liam Livingston for Sam Curran. I just want to see Liam Livingston play a game out there. And he looked so good in Australia as well. Again, another one that's just, so much. But anyway, let's see what they do. They want to win the game. I'm sure they'll go quite aggressive. Guys, it's been a pleasure to have you. Thank you all for your time. Before you go, got to get those predictions. So we're going to disqualify Rahman now because he called a 5-0 win for England at the start of this series, which has been proven to be spectacularly wrong. Myself, Nikesh, and Ankur are still in play because we all said 3-2. They both went 3 to India. I went 3 to England, so I could still get this. And Anam, you've been right on each of the matches that you've called so far. So let's start with you, Anam. Who's going to win the deciding match?
India's going to win the series and the deciding match.
Oh, stuff. Arif, who's winning the deciding match?
England.
England. Okay,
It's
there
the
we
World
go.
Cup final, isn't it?
It's going to be a great last match. Henry, our special guest today, and thank you again so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. If you don't already, you got to follow Henry Moeran on Twitter. He's got loads of amazing things. One of my favorite things are the time lapses he does at stadiums. You got to check them out. They're brilliant. Henry, who is winning the last match of the series?
I think, well, much depends perhaps on the fitness of Virat Kohli, which, that could be quite a decisive factor. I just think that maybe that having lost the toss and gone on to win today, maybe that would just give India a psychological edge. But T20, it's a funny old game. You just, that's such a bad answer. But I don't know. England. Let's go England.
There you go.
It's got to be England.
In the end.
It's got to be
answer I wanted. Yeah, I think I'm going to stand by my original prediction. I think England's going to win. But I reckon it'll go to a super over. Ooh, how's that? How's that for a prediction? It's going to finish even later, boys and girls. An even later finish tomorrow on Saturday. We'll be back for it. With a whole new group of people for you. As always, please like, subscribe, comment, all that jazz. You know what to do. A special thanks again to Anam Nadeem, Arif, and of course, Henry Moeran, our special guest today. And to you guys at home, hope you enjoyed the game. Post-match chat is done.